I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole to order at 8:08 p.m. And present are all members of council except for Councilwoman Williamson, the Mayor, Finance Director, Law Director, Human Resources Director, Planning and Development Director, and our guests this evening. On tonight's agenda is the response to the computer database programs memo that was sent out on behalf of myself and council. And I would like to thank the administration for providing the requested information. Due to the time tonight, I would like to ask council members to keep all questions related to what they would need to know in order to move forward with the iWork legislation that is currently in the Finance Committee. The information that was provided to council has raised additional questions for me, and I'm sure for some council members. So I do plan to schedule at least one more Committee of the Whole meeting prior to council discussing the permanent budget to get more questions answered about both of these programs. But again, I would like to focus this evening on questions that council needs to have answers to regarding the pending iWork legislation, as it's not my intention to hold that legislation up. We'd like to bring that to the floor and have council vote on that as soon as next week. So before I open it up to council members for any questions that they may have this evening, I have several myself. First, it appears that we are paying around $2,500 this year for service work orders in Munis. However, based on the information that I see from iWorks, it seems we are paying iWorks to do some of this as well. If council ends up approving the Munis, and forgive me, Director Copper, I don't know if you just pronounce it, the SAAS program, I believe that's right. The service work order module will then jump to almost $6,000. So if you could please explain to us what the service work order in Munis does, and then how is that different from what iWorks does?
The service work order is actually Fleet uses it. So it's the Fleet uses the service work order. And so that's part of their work order system and inventory system and that whole process. So they're part of the service department. So it was getting charged there, but they're the only ones who use it currently. And I know that, they might be looking at something, and so is the building department. So, but we can't take it away until they find something else, or if we can move to the next version and they like that version, they want to stay with it. So it's whatever works for them, because they're the end users.
Mm-hmm. So Fleet and service could potentially be then using the same program in the end. They're exploring it right now, is what you're saying.
Actually, I do believe that they've already looked at iWorks, and it doesn't work for what Fleet needs for their purposes, but they're looking at another software package that maybe, I'm hoping that once we move to we finally get to upgrade to the latest version, that the rework of the work order and fleet management system, it's called EAM now, that they'll be happy with what they have, but we won't know until we get there. They've only seen demos of it, and so we don't know. So, but they did look at iWorks and there were some issues with it. I don't remember the specifics, but I will say that every time, I mean, probably everyone could attest, every time someone wants to add a new software product, I do look to see if Tyler has a solution, and people do look at it to make sure that if it's something that works for them. But I think the one, we wanted to have a citywide ERP system, but I think the one thing that we've all learned through it is that it's great. The financial system is great. It's throughout the whole city. It helps everybody do their jobs, but maybe some other products are more user friendly for different people, for different divisions, for what they need it for.
Okay, so then at this point, Munis does not work for what Fleet needs. They need something else.
iWorks doesn't.
Okay. Okay.
But iWorks doesn't, or Munis doesn't work the way that iWorks does for service. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. So, in your Director Kupfer, in your memo regarding service looking into Munis and potentially some other types of software that could assist them better, could you explain to us when you stated we've been in a holding pattern since 2019?
Yes, I think that your council is well aware of all the IT infrastructure issues, the electrical issues, the server issues, the network issues that we've had over the last couple of years, and that we're working very hard to fix and add redundancy. But it hasn't enabled us to have the things that we need to upgrade to the latest version of Tyler or Munis that we've wanted to. So we tried again this year after the electrical was done, but things were still failing. And we talked about the thing that's in the budget, which is software as a service, which is essentially Tyler hosting the Munis products for us at their facility rather than us having on-site servers. A lot of softwares are going to that hosted where you go through the internet and get on there, and then they're responsible for all the hardware issues. And it is in the budget that was passed originally, which we talked about, is that's what we're proposing to do. IT has recommended going to that as well. And those are the things that we're looking at to try and improve. But we just tried again this summer, and the server could not. There was something with it couldn't hold the Munis server, and we would have had to spend $25,000 on a new server when we want to go to this Tyler hosted. So we're trying to get all our ducks lined up in a row so that IT just had to do some more finagling with this server to the one that we have, to try and give it more power so that it can work quicker right now. So we're working on it, and we're just trying to align it all, not to buy a server and then go to Tyler hosted. So and then we want to upgrade, which we don't want to do it through our IT department and us. If we go to Tyler hosted, they would take on some of that responsibility of the IT. So then it would be easier for the city to upgrade once we go to that software as a service, that Tyler hosted product. So it's kind of all aligning. And then my hope is that some people will like the new products that Munis has, that in the upgrade, which we own and are using currently, but they're better, or they don't. And I think the biggest issue was I'm not going to speak to what other people have with what they like or don't like, but it's their call, because ultimately they need to have the tools that they need to do their job. And the biggest expenditure was always the financial piece, which works good for us.
Okay. So just to confirm then, the items that you were talking about that are in the holding pattern, we're not currently paying for those because we're just holding off and waiting for
Well, the
the,
holding, right, we use the products, but we want to move to the next version, but we don't pay more for the newer version of the software. And additionally, a lot of our holding pattern was our own network infrastructure that couldn't work effectively. And with the electrical issues and all that, we needed, and they're trying to do a phone system. And so it's a lot all wrapped into one, trying to hook it all into this network. So, and we wanted redundancy as well, because as you recall, there were some really close calls of our server going down. So, so we're just in line, and we're following the advice of IT as to what goes first.
thank you. So hopefully this next set of questions doesn't violate my own request to stay focused on information needed for the pending legislation in the Finance Committee. But I did want some clarification. Mayor, in your iWork response, it's mentioned the facility management module. Could you or someone in the administration please explain to council what the facility management module does?
Dave, if you want to handle that one.
Yes, good evening. The facilities management module is utilized right now by our wastewater treatment plant under like Ron Ramsey's direction. Basically, what they're doing is they're tracking all assets within the plant there, as far as it tracks equipment numbers, part numbers, years that needs to be serviced, kind of preventative maintenance, things of that nature. We're currently not using that in the service department, but it's something that I want to be able to move towards, and that's basically tracking our asset and equipments in a similar way. So the nice thing about it is we're paying for that module through facilities right now for wastewater, but the way our work works is we can actually loop right on that in the service department as well, if that answers your question.
I can add to that too. I know Ron Ramsey has all parts inventory through iWorks. So, let's say we've got 3 pumps and he knows which buildings, and he has inventory by buildings. So, when we have to go install another pump or whatever part it is, then we can reorder them, and we have ample backup for everything. We never run out of anything. They have ample backup. If things were to shut down, we have plenty of parts in stock, and that's what manages that.
Okay, thank you. The reason I was asking that question is because Munis shows that we have a fleet fuel and like an inventory module, and then it appeared that iWork may have something similar. So right now, the city's spending a little bit over 3,000 on that module in Munis. But if council approves the SaaS later this year, that will jump to a little bit over 12,000. And so I guess that's just, one of the things that kind of jumped out at me. And it is, Director Copper, is that one of the modules that's in the holding pattern, or are we paying for that right now?
That's the fleet uses that, the work orders, and we also have all our capital assets in Munis. So it's part of the fixed asset program, and as changes are made, improvements are made, like the work orders can link to the capital asset directly. There is a preventative maintenance that is getting, that does not work the way the fleet department wants it to work, but the upgraded version I believe will work, but that's remains to be seen until we actually get it the upgrade. So, but that's our intent. And if it doesn't work for them, then they're going to look elsewhere as well.
Great, but they would essentially, so if it doesn't work, but the city had purchased that module, then what would we do then with that module that didn't work for that part of our city?
Well, if we went to another software, then we would stop paying the support for it. So we would have those savings, but then there would be, an upgrade. There'd be software support for any other software as well as probably some capital needs and conversion time and stuff like that. But yeah, that's the plan. But we can't not pay for it until they're on something that satisfies them.
Mm-hmm.
I like that everything's integrated with our capital assets and our financials, but again, it doesn't work well for their preventative maintenance. And some of it is internal struggles, and some of it is the way it was initially set up doesn't work the best with our fuel integrator, but we have solutions, but we're waiting for the next version because it's very different than the one they have. And it was silly to upgrade, to make the changes and learn this and do all these runarounds when this new version is a complete rewrite of it. It's called EAM now. So that's what we're waiting for. I didn't think it would take 2 years, but it is what it is.
Okay, thank you. Outside of payroll and our HR services, does our service department or wastewater department use any portion of Munis in the process of carrying out its everyday duties?
Are you referring to like they do purchase requisitions, they do budget management, they look up employee accruals, they look up their own information, like, because everybody in the city has access to the financial piece.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what so I mean, they use it in there every day, but only the financial piece.
Yeah, Madam President,
Sure.
Everyone uses Munis for financial stuff, but the day-to-day operations and service and wastewater treatment plant are run off iWork.
Okay. So iWorks is then handling the, for example, like you had talked about before, the mapping of our stormwater, or that, like, all of those things are being handled by iWork.
Correct.
Or okay, all right. So if a complaint comes in about something, it would not go into Munis, it would go into iWork.
Yeah, if there's a purchase order in Munis, they can move that purchase order to iWork, so they know that they purchased something.
Okay.
So that they can see what they did at that culvert or at the catch basin.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So are there any other departments then, other than service or wastewater, that use iWork to carry out its duties?
I think those are the two.
I can answer that. Yeah. Right now it's just wastewater and the service department. Correct.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, at this point, being cognizant of the time as well, council members, that's all the questions I have right now. As I mentioned, I'm still looking through the information that was provided to us, and I do want to continue and have another meeting on this. I have concerns about some of their modules and their costs. along with the auto renewing of contracts with no apparent plans to reevaluate after so many years. I think it would be good to have these programs live under one department rather than different departments ordering, setting contracts for these types of things and determining what they need on their own without looking into the big picture of the city. So I look forward to having the opportunity to ask more of these questions in the future. But given what I've seen and heard tonight, the current iWork contract appears to be a good value for the cost. And as was mentioned at our meetings last week, the contract is just for 1 year right now. So I don't wish to have my information request holding up departments from getting a program to help them do their jobs. I do think that we need to have further discussion with regard to Munis and how Munis and iWork work together. But again, that can happen before we vote on the permanent budget for this year. And then obviously, certainly when we're looking into the 2022 budget. So with that, I'll turn it over to council members for any questions that they might have this evening that would help clear anything up. Councilman Glassburn.
Thank you, Madam President. With respect to this specific item, again, I've had some extra time to look at it and I think it's fine. My more overriding concern is why this wasn't part of the budget process in terms of either the narratives for the departments or a larger part of the discussion if this is programmatically the direction we want to go. We are deficit spending to the tune of $4 million in our all funds accounts, and we're leaving our general fund at the end of the year, at least the way it's projected right now, at $859. So anything that's new, anything that's a additional expense has to be weighed against something else because that's, dollar in, dollar out is the way that we're looking right now. So I don't understand why we hadn't talked about this previously. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President.
Director Kupfer.
All these items were in the budget. Munis has been in the budget every year. And the Tyler hosted was discussed in committee, maybe, and I know that it's going to come before council again, so I'm not worried about having that discussion. So it was in the budget. It's always in the budget. And iWorks has been in the budget. The problem is that wastewater had their contract when they started it and service had their PO when they did it. So, and the only thing that's new is the GIS system. And that was in wastewater's budget this year. So just to clarify, it may not be like blatantly out there, but it was there. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Glassburn.
Madam President, I understand that this is in the total amount that's currently budgeted. What I don't understand is when we have a list of new items, that are as little as hundreds of dollars, $1,000 for various departments, why this isn't one of those items. I've looked at the narratives for the departments impacted by this. I've looked at the other narratives. It's not in there. That's my point. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other comments from council members at this time? Questions? Okay, seeing no other comments or questions at this time. Again, I'll just close the meeting. I will like to convene the committee of the whole, hopefully within the next 2 weeks on this, and then Councilman Schuman will take up the iWorks contract in his committee next week. I believe he has scheduled, so we'll move that forward to council. And with there being no other questions or comments, we will conclude committee of the whole at 8:33 p.m. Thank you.